right. Hello, manlets. So today we have an exciting talk for you. We're going to talk about something we've never talked about before, Solana. And I have some spicy questions for Toly, but I thought we'd maybe start a little serious first and end on a lighter note. So my first question, Toly, is going to be, when are you shaving your head?
Thought about it. Like, I have 3 kids now, and with every kid I have less and less hair on my head. So it's inevitable. Maybe next break point I'll have a nice shiny head.
All right, you heard it here first. It's not
Any dads
financial
out
advice.
there, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, so one thing that I think impresses everybody about you is you've helped build one of the best blockchains in existence, the best blockchain in existence, and you're still kind of in the trenches every single day. You've basically already kind of made it, but you're still here kind of every day reply guying like the most obscure accounts on Twitter and dinosaurs and stuff like that. What's driving you still? Why are you still here?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think like a lot of founders or entrepreneurs or, like you kind of have that like demon in you to go do stuff.
That dog.
That dog, you can't sit still. It's a curse, right? Because you're like, you cannot be happy in the moment. And that's probably what I struggle with the most. It's easy to work, easy to look at and like find problems and then go put your energy in fixing them. And it's much harder to, have that presence and be happy. That's I think, the hard part of like the entrepreneurial human existence. But it's rewarding. Like it's awesome to see the founders, the builders, everyone that's pushing the network forward and like, I don't know what else I'd be doing. It's like I want to have this idea of this like science fiction world computer where state and information is synchronized at the speed of light come to fruition, and I want to accelerate that as fast as I can.
Yeah, so I want to actually talk about that a bit later, but you're actually not standing still or sitting still. You're actually building award-winning phones. Solana Mobile last year did win the best phone of the, or worst phone of the year award by Marquise Brownlee, I think. And you were like, nope, you know what, we're just going to build another one. And I think you made an announcement 2 days ago, maybe, with the new Seeker phone. Can you talk a bit about why this one's different, what you're excited about with the new phone?
Yeah, so as folks know, I spent most of my career at Qualcomm. I was one of the early kernel engineers in this mobile platform called Brew. This is the first flip phones with just trying to get developers to go build something, anything on mobile platforms. So I was there before we had Android, before we had browsing, and then when the iPhone came out, it was this big revolutionary moment. I was one of the early folks trying to boot up Android and get that going to get like a reasonable competitor out to the iPhone. Mobile is one of those things that is, I think, the epitome of that personal computer of the 80s, that dream of having the tricorder in Star Trek. It is the most important device. And I think somebody needs to push a crypto version of it because, unfortunately, even though we got Linux on the Linux One, right? There's more Android devices out there than Windows devices and probably iPhone devices too. It is a very closed ecosystem. Google kind of sets the standards and censors applications and decides what is okay and what is not. They also charge a massive fee, 20% on Google and 30% on Apple. And it's when people talk about crypto disrupting stuff, and they think, oh, we're going to disrupt Visa. Visa's revenue on top of their gross payment volume is like 10 basis points. That is a sliver of a sliver. And like Apple and Google is 30%. That's 3,000 basis points. That is such a massive difference and such a huge opportunity to disrupt that it feels like somebody should be doing it, and I happen to have the skill set, and it felt like we could go and try and make it work. and we shipped a device, and we got Marquise to review it. So we got to notice.
The second
we were
one?
noticed, huh?
You got him to review the second one?
Just the first one.
Just
I mean, that was a surprise to me that he even took a look at it.
Okay.
And even though he gave us a Bust of the Year award, so it was a bad device, right? Like you can think of it, oh man, the Saga was not the best phone out there. It still sold out, which if you're a startup founder, that is actually a very, very positive signal. When you build a product as a startup founder, you have to take shortcuts. You have to build it as fast as you can to prove out a thesis. And you're kind of painting an impressionist painting, and you only focus on one really, really important detail, and everything else is sloppy, right? And like, when it works, nobody noticed the sloppiness. Even if somebody can paint out, oh man, those like hands are not really hands, right? Like nobody cares about those details. What they care about is the one thing you got right. And I think the thesis that developers can give out content and get people to switch devices or switch platforms, we might have gotten right. So there's a, like, the thing with Bonk that happened that was weird and interesting is that people sold the Bonk that they had and bought the phone to get the Bonk back. So they weren't like arbitraging the price of the phone. They just saw an opportunity to take this digital assets, that NFTs and all this other stuff that are part of these ecosystems. It's really no different than like Fortnite skins or anything else that people attribute value to in the digital world. Mm-hmm. They just happen to be tradable. They were able to go do this and use digital content to go switch platforms. That part worked, and it could work at 200,000 units. We're at like 140,000, so I'm pretty sure we'll get there. It could work at 1 million units. And at that point, I think that is a large enough platform with a large enough user base that it is actually competitive with Apple and Google. Like, it is like a very, very hard problem to disrupt these big companies.
So how are you going to do it? Give me a very quick bullet, rapid fire of the new features that you think are worthwhile for everybody who maybe want to look at the phone.
It's cheaper. That's the most important part. So it's a $500 device instead of a $1,000 device. It's crazy to launch a $1,000 device. That's just. But with
that was impressive, yeah.
With 20,000 units, it's impossible to build a hardware at that like unit cost to actually get it over the hump. So that was part of the trade-offs. It's much cheaper. It has really good specs, awesome screen. It's lighter. The software, we have more time to iterate. So the actual integration with Soulflare, who's doing like really like design work to make sure that that experience of signing is like Apple Pay. So a lot of improvements there, and hopefully a lot more apps, a lot more things for people to do, and like a lot more rewards and everything else to incentivize users to actually stay in a device and use it.
Cool. Well, congrats on the launch. Let's see if that's enough to overcome the disgust people get from seeing green messages on their phones, or green bubbles or something. I don't have an iPhone. Okay, let's switch gears. I tweeted today about what I should ask you, and I got a lot of troll answers, but probably the most troll one was like, ask him what he thinks about his blockchain being used for some weird stuff. I'm paraphrasing weird here. It was actually quite specific. What do you kind of think about what's being done on maybe blockchains in general, but also Solana?
Yeah, there's this weird dynamic with the internet and a lot of technologies that you have these weird use cases that actually push the technology forward. And even today, you look at iOS, some of the coolest applications that you think what makes Apple and mobile magic is that I can push a button and a car will appear magically in front of me anywhere in the world when I push this button for Lyft or Uber or whatever. But Apple makes almost $0 in revenue from that. They actually make a ton of revenue from games, fart apps like Clash of Clans, like people spending money to go kill all their friends in their servers. That activity, you don't think of it as like, why do we need the best designers in the world at a $3 trillion company and at TSMC with 2 nanometer technology to go build a game where you like playing Tower of Defense or whatever it is that you're doing. But that's what people spend their time on. So you kind of get these weird effects in tech where some of the stuff you build and some of the stuff that generates the most revenue ends up being effectively time filler for a lot of people. But that pays for the really, really cool infrastructure. Like you look at the FireDancer demos, 1 million TPS on a private, like globally distributed fiber optic network with FPGA switches that are like the best technology like you can even dream of in networking is used for meme coins. Is that okay? Yes, it is okay. It's okay for that stuff to pay for the stack, so then you could have a global payment system that is no fees, that is frictional, that is global and truly borderless, and like makes the rest of commerce move much, much faster and cheaper. So to me, it's a sign that like I think we are living in a really, really blessed timeline where people can spend their money and time on playing games while we can build all this technology to improve commerce and make sure we live in a world of abundance.
Mm-hmm. For everybody who didn't, I'm guessing everybody watched the Kevin Bowers talk, but Toly just mentioned something that I think probably most people didn't understand because Kevin Bowers is super intimidating. But the FireDancer team, and correct me if I'm wrong, did 1 million TPS on a network of 100 nodes.
Correct.
Which is pretty insane, right?
Yep.
And so, what
globally distributed, so these are nodes all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world, so with like network jitter and all this. And so maybe that brings me to the next question, which is, you always talked about, blockchain or NASDAQ at blockchain at NASDAQ speeds. See, it's very confusing. Get rid of it. And the global state machine, and it's what drives you and stuff. And so one of my critiques to that has been like, why do you think people care that it's a global state machine? Like, is that actually the thing that people have a use for, or do you just think it's cool and you want to like, build it? So like, what does that actually mean, and why do you think it's important?
The kind of time is money, right, is the most apparent in trading and finance and execution. So when an order is delayed, when the queue to get the orders has like attack vectors and MEV extraction and all these things, these are all like sand in the gears of finance. And that means that people have to price their things higher than they should be because of all these little like things that extract value or collect rents from information asymmetry. So that causes prices to be worse for people. And that exists with any kind of system that introduces delays or settlement risk or anything else. So if you want to think about how do we disrupt, like what is the final stage of all of finance? In my view, it is a single giant global state machine that is moving as fast as speed of light as physics allow, that is atomic and permissionless and global. And there's the cool thing is that this can be built on hardware that is available to anyone in the world with open source software by volunteers effectively kind of running these boxes and stuff. And that's a very, very disruptive idea. In my mind, it is as disruptive as Linux was in the 90s, where you had these proprietary commercial operating systems that were very expensive to build, that took 100,000 engineers at Microsoft, and these hobbyists were like, you know what, we can do better by just sharing code freely amongst each other on the weekends. And they won. And I think the reason that crypto will win is because it can build a better product. It can be a very, very fast giant atomic state machine that allows anyone to participate at the speed of light. And that's going to result in better pricing for people. Better prices are going to win customers. That's what it comes down to.
What's the biggest misconception about Solana?
I don't know. I mean, I've been replying to all of these for so long.
Why do you do that? Why do you go on Twitter? I never go on Twitter. It sucks.
Again, like when I moved as a kid from the USSR, literally, if anyone remembers what that was, to United States as the internet, like consumer internet was just starting to get going, it was just such a bizarre change. And I was plugged in on the internet in like IRC chat rooms and ICQ and stuff, and I just kind of got used to this idea of being permanently connected. So it's part of that demon, right? That like you can't you can't stop, right? You're always trying to fix something, always trying to talk to people. So I don't know.
Yeah. So you're saying basically like
It's a curse.
these new founders have merely adopted the troll, but you were born in it.
I was born in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, let's shift gears again. What keeps you up at night?
The scariest thing in these systems is that they're built by people, and people write bugs, and sometimes, those bugs can be catastrophic. So that's been like the most frightening thing about working in this space, is that, smart contract hacks, but these could happen at the L1 infra itself, and that's the scariest thing. And this is why FireDancer has been such a big focus in the ecosystem. It's just having a second implementation of the same protocol, regardless of the TPS and all this stuff. It's awesome that we were able to give them two goals. One is rebuild it, but also show us how we suck at software and make it faster. They are able to accomplish both of those. But the most important part there isn't the performance. It's literally that it's built by different people. So the probability of the same bug occurring in both implementations is very, very unlikely. And the third client is much, much easier when you have two. So that's the scariest part. That's what keeps me up at night. But we're getting very close to that being kind of done and an issue behind us. And as soon as FireDancer is on mainnet to a level where more than 33% of the network is either running FireDancer or both clients, in my view, that's not beta anymore. I will take the beta tag off the Explorer that that Labs runs.
That name is so troll. What do you, as FireDancer continues work on this and maybe third and fourth validators spin up or clients spin up and more people build things, what do you envision your role evolving into 5 years into the future, 6 years into the future? What do you want to be doing?
I love the principal engineer track I see. It's great. Like, I love talking to the super smart folks at Anza at FireDancer with like a proposal, like a sync execution, and forcing them to go look at it. I have I'm privileged that they will listen to me, they will hear me out, and they won't listen to me and do exactly what I said. They will fight back, and we end up with a better result, better design. So, I mean, if I could be doing that 10, 20 years from now, I'm blessed. Like, it means like I got very lucky, and Solana keeps improving, and there's more design work, and I get to do the stuff that brought me into engineering in the first place.
Cool. Yeah, shout out to Trent for taking away Toly's GitHub privileges. One thing I also want to ask is you're super into startups and kind of the founder mentality or having the demon or dog in you. A lot of people look up to you. Obviously, we were just outside and everybody wants to take a picture with you and whatnot. What would you like to see more from the Solana ecosystem? What are some words of encouragement that you'd offer them?
Go build weird stuff. Like, I think, like as soon as I landed in the U.S., right, as a kid, parents got me a computer. It was a Pentium 75. I was trying to figure out Linux and really got into computers and was a nerd and loved software, and the movie Hackers is still burned into my brain. And the idea and the dream of Silicon Valley, where you can start with an idea and go build it in your garage, was really, really exciting. And I think that idea is now global, and crypto and the finance that crypto creates that's global and borderless has really demonstrated that you don't need Silicon Valley, you don't even need Wall Street. Everything can happen on the internet in our own little kind of our own world, and it's awesome. And you just need founders that are working on weird stuff on the weekend, and some of it will pop. That some of it will actually take off and become really valuable and improve people's lives. So just go build stuff. like the worst thing you can do is nothing. Like it's a lot of advice and a lot of startup advice in Paul Graham's notes and Silicon Valley books. And a startup or the founder needs to is like a shark. They need to be swimming. They need to be trying things. Even if you build the wrong thing, it's a learning process, and the iteration of trying to get product market fit and get users and understanding them. It's all part of the learning process. So just go build stuff. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about failure. Just go do it.
Cool. Final question. I'm not sure if you've ever been asked this. You are famous for having 2 coffees and a beer. What was the beer?
It was a Kolsch. A Kolsch. I don't remember the brand. It was a Kolsch.
Okay. Well,
I was in San Diego for about a decade, and it was like IPAs everywhere. And after, you just get sick of IPAs at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I switched to the cleanest, crispest beer you can get. At that time, was a Kolsch.
Yeah. So if you guys want to come up with any new breakthroughs,
two cappuccinos and a Kolsch, and
cappuccino specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's all the time we got. Please give a huge round of applause to the legend, Anatoly.